want to pause and ask, keep it on AI. What's your question?
We fine with that.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Tuesday, April the 14th, 2026 at 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. So we'll call the meeting to order, and could I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? And there are no late items? No, thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Poderica, all in favor? Thank you. And the adoption of the minutes, that would be the Committee of the Whole minutes of March the 24th, 2026. Thank you. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. And first up today, we have a delegation. The Lees and Associates are going to present the cemetery master plan. And so we welcome Tess Jacobek and Layla Zeppelin. Please go ahead, ladies. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff and councillors. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if there are any issues. We're here today
Go ahead.
Thank you. We're here today to present an overview of the findings from the Town of Osoyoos Cemetery Review. My name is Tess Jacobek. I am a landscape designer with Lees and Associates, and with me today is Layla Zeppelin, the project manager for this review. Lees and Associates are landscape architects, planners, and designers. Our cemetery master planning, business planning, and design work spans over 2 decades and includes projects in cemeteries right across Canada and North America. Today, we'll give you a brief overview of the project, including projections for upcoming demand. Then we'll go over the cemetery concept plan and some of the development priorities. Finally, we'll give an overview of the financial analysis, and we'll conclude with any questions that you might have. The main goals of this cemetery review were to develop a concept plan to help guide the cemetery's future development over the next 25 years and beyond, to meet the community's current and future needs, identify additional products and services, and help the town achieve its financial objectives for Lakeview Cemetery. The process involved background research that was then supported by a site visit and workshop with your team. We then worked through the business plan and draft site plan. Public engagement was important and integral to informing the final site plan, and included a cemetery workshop with town staff, stakeholder interviews, and broader public engagement through a public open house and a survey. The final report will be provided to Council today for your review. The town currently has more than 23,000 residents, and that number is expected to climb to over 25,000 by 2049. With the aging baby boomer population, nearly 10,000 deaths are projected over the next 25 years. This means demand for cemetery services is rising, and cremation is strongly preferred in this community. Right now, the market area's cremation rate is around 92%, which is higher than the provincial rate of 87%. Although cremation is more popular, it's expected that some community members will continue to require in-ground casket burials due to cultural or religious preferences. If current sales trends continue, Lakeview Cemetery has approximately 25 to 30 years of casket lot sales remaining. However, in-ground cremation lots are expected to be sold out in 3 to 4 years, and columbarium niches are also expected to be fully sold out within 1 to 2 years. However, additional columbarium have been approved by Council for construction in 2026. If patterns continue, the town of Osoyoos will have enough casket lot inventory to accommodate sales over the next 25 years, but we'll need to develop approximately 240 to 250 cremation lots and around 120 to 130 columbarium niches. Based on standard lot layouts, the town will need to develop approximately 500 square meters of land for cremation lots. With our proposed concept plan, it is expected that this land can be accommodated in the existing cemetery through strategic infill and development of underutilized areas. However, one of our recommendations is to conduct a topographic survey to confirm the remaining areas that are available for infill. We'd like to note that the best practice recommends maintaining approximately 50 years of interment inventory, and if the town intends to continue to provide burial services over the long term, future land acquisition will need to be considered. The design principles for Lakeview Cemetery were developed to help guide the cemetery concept plan, and these principles were informed by staff, stakeholder, and community engagement, as well as site analysis and the project's objectives. The design principles are to protect and preserve the cemetery's peaceful and natural setting, improve the access, wayfinding, and circulation, expand the interment capacity, and increase the interment memorialization options through infill, prioritize environmentally sensitive practices, which can include land conservation, improving the ecological habitat, and the use of xeriscaping, enhance the safety, appearance, and long-term maintenance in the cemetery's older dry sections, and improve and refresh the cemetery's perimeter and entrances to improve overall appearance and presence. This is the concept plan that describes the vision and organization for the development. The cemetery currently has 3 access points, and it is recommended that the central entrance be enhanced as the primary access, including the addition of an entry kiosk to strengthen the sense of arrival, clearly marking the transition into the cemetery, and improve wayfinding. This will allow a single main loop road to continue to provide circulation through the cemetery. And in the future, the southern vehicular access point and one of the maintenance shed driveways can potentially be closed and infilled with a pathway and mix of interment options to be determined as capacity needs and preferences evolve. Blue areas throughout the concept plan indicate areas for infill, prioritizing pockets of cremation lot infill and columbary units, particularly along Lakeview Drive, which would take advantage of views out towards the lake. Based on interest from public engagement, the concept plan includes the development of a scattering garden, a memorial wall, and an undeveloped area has been identified for a proposed green burial section, which are options that are not currently offered in the cemetery services. In addition to increasing inventory and interment and memorialization options, the plan proposed several cemetery-wide improvements, including a small sheltered gathering space, and improvements to the perimeter, including new planting and fencing. In the older dry sections of the cemetery, concrete covers and vaults show signs of deterioration, and although the city is not responsible for maintaining these, they present a safety hazard. One of the recommendations is to implement a succession management plan for these areas, and this would involve the gradual transition from hardscape conditions to low maintenance planting through a phased approach. As noted, there are some opportunities on site to add some products and services not currently offered by the cemetery that were shown to be supported by public engagement. This slide shows some illustrative examples of how these concepts can be realized, such as a potential scattering garden, as well as premium upright family estate lots, and some of the potential cremation infill and succession management of some of the dry sections. In the cemetery review, we've included a list of recommendations. On this slide, we see some examples from the report, and these recommendations have been formatted into a matrix to include priority levels for each item that would allow a phased implementation approach. High priority items include the development of additional cremation inventory, including additional columbaria and in-ground cremation lot infill. Certain updates to the cemetery bylaw, including clarifying size and placement of markers and the inclusion of flower vases. A tree replacement and management strategy for deteriorating trees on site. The installation of a scattering garden. The start of dry section succession management, and several improvements to wayfinding, access, and circulation. Next, we'll go through some of the findings and recommendations of the financial overview. The analysis reviewed Lakeview Cemetery's historic financial performance, assessed its projected trajectory, and identified strategies to support long-term financial sustainability. The cemetery's financial performance is strong relative to similarly sized cemeteries across British Columbia. Over the past 5 years, the cemetery has generally operated above break-even, with revenues covering annual costs and generating a positive net income, and is expected to maintain above break even over the next 50 years. Based on its current trajectory, the Perpetual Care Fund is projected to grow to a level sufficient to fund a minimum standard of care within approximately 33 years. However, maintaining current service levels would still require ongoing tax support. There are several opportunities to improve the cemetery's financial trajectory. The town's cemetery rates are generally on par with or below the regional average, and a non-resident premium is not currently applied. A one-time fee adjustment combined with an additional annual contribution of $5,000 per year to the PCF would accelerate fund growth. And under this scenario, the PCF is projected to support a minimum level of care within approximately 20 years and a current service levels within approximately 40 years. As noted in the concept plan, a phased succession management approach is recommended for the cemetery's older dry sections. And to support this initiative, we recommend that an additional $5,000 be allocated annually into care and maintenance costs. With this addition, minimum site care could still be achieved within approximately 25 years and current care cost coverage in approximately 50 years. In addition, there are several improvements that are recommended to financial tracking and reporting to support accurate forecasting and long-term planning, and to revisit the financial strategy every 5 years to ensure the Perpetual Care Fund remains on track. In summary, the cemetery has a strong financial performance. However, implementing the recommended changes to the Perpetual Care Fund will help minimize the long-term tax liability and free up capital to spend on other projects in the community. The most immediate financial risk is the limited remaining inventory available for sale, and implementing the concept plan will provide interment and memorialization options and services to meet the needs of the community for the next 25 years and beyond. However, if the town intends to continue to provide this service over the long term, future land acquisition will need to be considered. Thank you for your time. Council will be receiving our report today for review, and once you've had some time to read through, and if you have any additional questions, please let Mark Colson know, and we can provide responses. And I'll open it up to any questions that you might have now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tess and Layla, for presenting this today. We just got the 87-page report last night, so we haven't had time to go through it in detail yet. But thank you for that, because it's very well presented, and it looks like it'll be quite easy to read and get through. So I will open it up and just see if anybody at the table here has any questions. Thank you. Could you take down your presentation so that we can see you? Sure, great, thank you. Council, anybody have any? Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you double deck the caskets?
Yes, double depth is an option. I don't remember if it's currently being implemented throughout the cemetery. Lila, do you remember?
Yes, you do have a section that's allocated towards double depth. And certainly when space becomes scarce in other cemetery environments, double depth becomes the only option. So that's another way in future to ensure additional inventory.
So is there an opportunity to expand that area looking down the future?
For sure, yes.
So my parents are buried in a cemetery in Ontario, and the grandparents are double decked underneath, and then there's 6 spots on top for the cremation boxes. Is that a consideration here as well?
It is certainly. There is currently a situation where at Lakeview, there is an option for people to have cremated remains interred on top of the grave, so similar to that. So I think we just need to ensure, as we outlined in our recommendations, that the marker size becomes standardized, because the challenge is the maintenance around, potentially having 6 stones or monuments on top of the grave. So so that just needs to be considered simultaneously, but doubling down on depth, assuming your ground conditions are appropriate, that can certainly be a way forward.
Thank you. And the other thing is the old part of the cemetery, the sort of original part. I remember being out there a few years ago and being horrified at the state of some of the, and I thought it was definitely a hazard area, but some of the cement, which I understand had not been done by the town, but by the family, and we certainly don't allow that anymore. But it's a bit of a concern because some of them are falling in and they're quite broken. Plus, some of them, you can't even read the names on them because they're that old. They've been worn off. Is there anything that can be done with that part, or is that not something that we have any say over?
Yes. One of our recommendations is that dry section succession management, and that would include the transition of those older sections from the hardscape conditions to low maintenance planting. And prior to the work, it would include review of historical records and making reasonable efforts to contact the families. And then improvements would proceed section by section to minimize disruption. And the work would include potentially removing those concrete grave covers and vaults where appropriate and introducing some drought-tolerant planting, as well as raising and restoring those monuments after the improvements.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Councillor King.
Yeah, with that last comment, is that the town's expense to redo that, or would the owner be involved?
So that was one of our last financial scenarios where we've recommended the inclusion of $5,000 per year to care and maintenance costs to implement this strategy in a phased approach. So that would still allow the financial aspect to be strong for the cemetery, but would include that budget within an annual allocation.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate all the work that you've put into this, and we will certainly look through this. And if we have any more questions, we'll be contacting you. So thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
Okay. We will now move on to staff reports, and the first one is various land use bylaw amendments, and that would be Ms. Duong. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've just got a quick presentation to assist with the discussion today.
Okay.
And are you seeing my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
All right, perfect. I'll make this pretty quick. As council may recall, at its meeting of January 27th, in committee, staff had provided an overview of the potential bylaw amendments that would be needed to address various issues that were identified through day-to-day work within the town's land use bylaws. Ultimately, council did initiate OCP Amendment Bylaw number 1375.11 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1395.12. The OCP Amendment Bylaw 1375.11 covered off proposed amendments to the riparian development permit area exemptions. It also proposed various map schedule corrections to reflect previous council direction. As it pertains to Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1395.12, the proposed amendments included the inclusion of alcohol production facilities as a permitted use within the general industrial zone to reflect previous allowances under the former zoning bylaw. And relevant to today's discussion, the amendment bylaw also included proposed changes which sought to amend parking space dimension mile width requirements. Now, at that meeting, there were various concerns raised regarding the ability of the proposed dimensions in order to accommodate larger vehicles that would typically be used to tow boats during the summer months within the town. As was previously discussed at our last meeting, This is also a challenge with other uses within town, such as agricultural users that tend to have larger vehicles as well. So at its meeting of March 24th, at the council meeting where first and second reading were being considered, staff provided further information with respect to those concerns and noted that the dimensions as proposed would not be able to fully accommodate the length of larger vehicles, such as mid to full-size pickup trucks. Now, while those proposed amendments would be setting a minimum dimension that would need to be met, staff did note that council may wish to retain its existing parking regulations in order to address those concerns that were flagged in January. So the purpose of this item today is to seek council's direction as it relates to making potential changes to the amendment bylaw to address that concern. And so, as has been previously discussed, as part of the zoning bylaw update, regulations that related to dimensions of parking spaces and maneuvering aisle widths in parking lots were updated in order to bring parking requirements up to modern standards. These changes generally resulted in the imposition of greater parking space dimension and maneuvering aisle requirements, which is understood to have resulted in some challenges with respect to development projects which were ongoing at the time of the bylaw transition. That being said, the current parking requirements within zoning bylaw number 1395 are reflective of a rural environment that the town is situated in, again, reflective of the surrounding agricultural and extractive industries, where larger vehicles might be utilized to, and then therefore larger parking requirements would be needed to accommodate those vehicles. And as previously mentioned, we did review parking regulations that applied within select member municipalities within the South and Central Okanagan, as well as some resort municipalities. And that review had indicated there's no clear standard that applies to the size of parking spaces and maneuvering aisles. That being said, in the original drafting of Amendment Bylaw number 1395.12, our intent was to take a sub-regional approach to the application of parking standards to align our parking dimension requirements with those that are seen within the town of Oliver, to just provide some consistency in the area. And as mentioned, those dimensions as proposed would not be able to fully accommodate the length of those larger vehicles. And as previously advised, the current regulations would likely be able to accommodate those concerns that council had previously raised. So with that in mind, we are seeking council's direction at this time with respect to zoning amendment bylaw number 1395.12. We are recommending that the amendment bylaw be initiated as is. Again, this is a recommendation that's being provided on the basis of previous council direction. However, council would like to keep its current parking regulations. An alternative motion is available to initiate the bylaw subject to revisions to the amendment bylaw, such as the removal of those proposed changes pertaining to vehicle parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duong. I will just see if council has any concerns about this. I missed the last meeting, so I'm not exactly sure what happened at the conversation there, but I'm sure council has some concerns about it. Councillor Chong, are you first?
I just thought Councillor King would be quicker on the draw. I think in general, regionalization and taking a more consistent approach with bylaws is a good way of looking at things. But in this situation, I'm of the opinion that it's not quite the best approach for us. Mainly because comparing Oliver and Osoyoos, we have a lake which is a huge driver for tourism, while Oliver does not. So as such, the types of vehicles that will be using these parking spots will be fundamentally different. With that said, they'll be larger. On average, I mean, the width of your usual full-size trucks, mid-size trucks and SUVs, 2 meters, and then with mirrors about 2.4. So, I mean, with the current bylaw as it stands, you're left with 30 centimeters, so 15 centimeters on each side to essentially open a door. So if we do shrink that, that cuts it even more, and I like my cars having dings on the doors. So I don't agree with this update. If anything, I think it should be wider, but that's a different conversation, I suppose.
Thank you. My concern was when I read through it is the height In some of the garages, I remember we had somebody come and ask for a variance on lowering height. We were concerned about vehicles, trucks. I'm wondering about, there are so many places in town that have underground parking. And I'm wondering if any of those have any regulations on it. I mean, certainly when you go into a parking place like in Vancouver, they will announce you cannot go in here unless you are less than the certified amount. And I'm concerned about it because I think you're quite right, Councillor Chung, that Oliver and Osoyoos are totally different. We have numerous motels here and resorts that require underground parking and surface parking as well. But I'm concerned about the size of the stalls and the height for opening up a trunk, opening up whatever happens to be on the back, and also for accessibility spots. And I know that's probably not the what we're talking about here, because accessibility, but usually it doesn't look at the height, it just looks at the width of the stall. So I'm certainly not in favor of going less or bringing it into what Oliver has. I don't think that fits with ours. So I'd rather see it wider and higher. And it was interesting to see that there were 4 of the communities that are resort municipalities. They might have similar concerns to us because they obviously have a lot of tourists that would join in there. But I'm thinking of the Holiday Inn. That's one place, and I know they have had underground parking for a long time. I don't know whether that was looked at or not. And say White Sands, there's another one. They all have underground parking. Many other places do as well, but those 2 I thought of right away. One being apartments and one being a hotel, motel. So I'm in favor of not reducing it. I'll just see if anybody else. Councillor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think height really comes into it much. Those are previous developments. And when you get a permit, when you're building a new building, if it has underground parking, you've got your restrictions already, don't you? Mr. Madison?
Yes, that's correct. So we do currently have a minimum height requirement of 2.2 meters, which is actually, if you look across the various municipalities that we reviewed, on the higher end, we match the highest minimum height requirement as with Revelstoke. Everyone else seems to have had lower.
And then one other question, when you looked at the other resort municipalities, did they have angle parking like we do on Main Street?
Yes, so I would say on average, most municipalities typically utilize the stall angle and varying degrees of minimum lengths being required. That being said, it's not the same all across the board. I believe the city of Vernon also utilizes a similar model as us, which kind of keeps it more standardized so that it's not as complicated as a zoning regulation.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I tend to agree with Councillor Chong. I think that basically we have totally different than Oliver. Basically, in the summertime, we have the larger trucks, and we only have a couple blocks, maybe 3 on Main Street on both sides they're actually angle parking. So basically, the ones that are parallel parking on the other parts of the street, that width thing is not going to matter. So we're talking a short part in town. And we also, all winter long, we have all the snowbirds here. And most of those snowbirds all come with big 4x4 trucks as well. So I think we have, and they're parked a lot of time in winter time. If you drive down the main street, an angle parking, and they're fairly big trucks. So I think we have a lot more larger vehicle usage than some of the other communities that you're referring to. Thank you.
Did you? Oh, go ahead.
So hypothetically speaking, if we were to make changes to the minimum width, would the current parking stalls basically be grandfathered, and then new parking stall builds will then need to follow this updated bylaw, or will we have to do sweeping changes across the board?
So any new developments would be subject to the parking regulations as they were changed.
That's just a follow-up. So hypothetically speaking, if the parking lot at the Owl were to be resurfaced and then new lines were painted, that would, like, if we were to update the minimum width, they'd still just use the previous bylaw, not the updated bylaw, or hypothetically updated bylaw.
Is that correct, Ms. Wong? That they would be grandfathered and they would be allowed to use the same dimensions that they have in there, even though they're updating it?
I would say typically speaking, the thing that would trigger any like additional like parking requirements would typically be like things like changes to floor area. That's when we'd be looking at new development occurring, right? And that's when that new regulations that were adopted would be imposed. So if they're not making any changes that would otherwise impact their parking requirements, it would be grandfathered in that case.
Good, thank you. Is there anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Poderica.
And thank you, Worship, and through you, Mr. Duong. With regards to parking, let's say on or near highways 397, are there minimum highway or requirements from highways with regards to, let's say, if there was an addition of, and I'm thinking probably if anything would be on East Socias if we were to add parking stalls, would it follow highway standards at that point, or would it refer back to the bylaw itself?
So with respect to a zoning bylaw that would impact lands within 800 meters of a controlled access highway, those would be referred to the Ministry of Transportation for comment. In this case, this particular amendment bylaw was referred to the ministry already for comment, and they, I believe, had provided preliminary approval.
Crown use of crown land.
That being said, yes, crown use of crown land, the town wouldn't be able to impose its standards onto the crown. They would be able to then impose their own standards on their highways as they use it.
Okay, or did you have something else? Go ahead.
If I can, yeah, sorry, and just highlighting Councillor Chung and Councillor Bennett's comments. I know I've talked at length before about obviously some of our more unique settings. Also factoring in the increase in rooftop recreational equipment as well as rear recreational equipment that we've been seeing more and more of. Obviously, bikes on the backs of trucks and vehicles is becoming more and more that I would support us looking at the larger of recommendations. I'm trying to find a municipality that kind of has a happy medium, but they're all over the place here. But I am obviously appreciate the addition of the resort municipalities that have been added in here to try and give us some good understanding as to, not every municipality is different. Everyone's got different needs, and you look at the demographic and the especially when we look at our travelers as well as our snowbird population. I do appreciate, I do support larger is better in this case. Just based on past experience and what we've seen here locally throughout the seasons. It's not just one season. It's what we're seeing in the winter is what we're seeing in the summer nowadays. And I would just support us moving forward with the larger of the recommendations, recognizing those challenges.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but just to provide context here, this would really only apply to new developments or current developments that are going to undergo any changes. So really the scope of this change to the bylaw would be like very minimal, right? I mean, most, if not almost all, our angled parking is along the highway. Our public parking is, well, until we look at the Parks Master Plan, is going to be essentially unchanged. And when we look at our strategic vision, we're not looking at expanding town boundaries anytime soon, and there really isn't that much more developable land. So I just wanted to clarify that whatever changes, if any, really don't have that much of an impact in terms.
You're quite right, I suppose, but it's I guess what we want to know is what we're being asked to do is initiate an amendment bylaw, and I'm just wondering if Ms. Duong has enough information from us that that you would be able to move forward with that. Are you requiring any other comments or concerns, or I'm just not sure where we're at the moment. Are you okay with what we've said?
So I think my understanding at this time is that council is not supportive of the bylaw in its current form, or the amendment bylaw in its current form. So the direction that we would need from staff standpoint is really like, does council wish to initiate the amendment bylaw as is or with revisions to it? And are those, if council wishes to have revisions made to the amendment bylaw, should those revisions be simply to essentially strike out the portion of the amendment bylaw which speaks to making changes to the vehicle parking dimension requirements, or if council wishes to make different changes to the vehicle parking dimension requirements.
Thank you. Well, we'll check. We've got the two lists on here, 98 and 2024. Are we, I guess, are we okay with accepting the 2024 regulations? Go ahead.
I mean, in an ideal world, I like what Fernie does with their stall angle and their gradual increase in minimum width. I mean, I would like to see that.
I would think that Fernie might need that because they're a skiing community. That's their reason for being a resort municipality. It's likely because they have oh, Mr. Madsen is from close there. Do you have anything to add to this? Do you think it's quite different there than it is here?
Thank you, Mayor. I would say from both Revelstoke and Fernie's perspective, they obviously get a whole lot more snow. They do get large trucks for both mountain biking, snowmobiling, etc. But they still need some more space in and around vehicles for snow. Fernie, as an example, they store all their snow on the road. So, and they get a lot.
Thank you. So are we looking at maybe looking at Fernie's recommendations? Or, I mean, we have had in the past a lot of snow and it's been piled on the road and in the middle of the road. And believe me, people are not used to that and they don't like it. But you know what? It takes out some of the parking places too, especially on the highway. Go ahead.
Well, and just as a follow-up to Dr. Madsen's point, why is Revelstoke's minimum width 2.5 meters? It can like it just was. I found it interesting. Yeah.
Councillor King, do you have a question?
Not really. I can support the recommendations. I mean, this is on new development going forward. So I think they put a lot of time in and analyzed everything and got feedback. So I support the recommendation.
To clarify which recommendation.
That the bylaw be initiated. So that would require changes. Am I correct? That's to the 2024 bylaw? Yeah. So are we okay with that? I'm a little confused still. The 2024 bylaw is in place. Are we asking that are we asking that we include a couple of places where we want it? The number's a little wider and higher. Is that what this bylaw, the initiation would mean?
I would say no, you'd have to do a whole new study and look at different areas in town if you're going to change one section and not the other section. This kind of supports the whole town as one.
Mhm.
So again, and now she want to go back and do another whole report on different areas, to me, does not make sense.
Well, and we've just said that this is, anything that's grandfathered in there is not going to be changed anyway. So we're just looking at,
stuff.
new stuff. So, does this take a lot of time and work to initiate a whole new study, or is there enough information that things can be done fairly easily? Mrs. Colson?
One of the things I had recommended to council on a different matter earlier this year was to consider requisitioning a parking master plan in 2027. And that could include the scope of the size, shape, height of parking spots.
Yeah. That seems to make sense. I know that a few years back, we did a whole parking, just the number of parking places in town, including churches and that type of thing. And there was a map that was done of that, but I don't think it dealt with the height or the width. Yeah. So, what do we think? Are we okay with initiating this with the minor changes that we have, that we would like to see in any new builds? You made the motion. Okay. Are you seconding?
just-
No, okay.
Just
Yeah, I
point
know.
of clarity.
Yeah.
Because in 2024, minimum width is 2.7, and then in the draft bylaw, it's dropped to 2.6. So are you suggesting, Councillor King, that we reduce the width by 10 centimeters?
That's the bylaw back in 1998, if I'm looking at it right.
Or
This is the new one, makes it a little bigger in my, it goes with the other.
The minimum width was 2.6 at one point. Now it's 2.4.
Yeah, pretty totally.
Go ahead.
Clarification, if I may, Your Worship. For you, Mr. Duong, so just confirming here, in this proposed bylaw, so 1395.12, 2026, the minimum dimensions that are listed there would be the recommended as part of this bylaw start, correct?
Yes, so if you were to initiate the bylaw as is, which is option 1 in the report, it would be to reduce essentially, in general, the minimum parking dimension requirements as shown in the bylaw.
So like, for example, stall width at 0 would be 2.4, and then 30 degrees up to 90 degrees at 2.6.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And it would impose then the angled parking kind of differentiation of parking requirements.
So it's been moved that we initiate this. Is there a seconder? I'll second it then. Is there any other concerns about this? No. Or option 2, that it be initiated subject to the following revisions. Does that make more sense? Sorry, it is a little confusing. I'm, because I missed the last one. I'm not quite sure where you're at. Go ahead, Mrs. Colson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I just ask a question of clarification to Ms. Duong? That if we were to look at option 2, resolution, something like that the Town of Osoyoos zoning amendment bylaw 1395.1 to be initiated subject to the following revisions, removal of the proposed changes pertaining to the dimensions of the parking spaces, would that essentially mean that we stick with status quo for the time being?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks.
So we have moved and seconded that this bylaw be initiated. We better deal with that first. All in favor? Against? Okay, so that did not pass. So does somebody have another motion? Go ahead.
move option 2, what Director Colson said.
Director Colson, you have that written down, do you?
Can I read
Okay.
that again?
that the Town of Osoyoos zoning bylaw number 1395.12 be initiated subject to the following revisions. Removal of the proposed changes pertaining to the dimensions of parking spaces.
So do we have somebody who's wanting to move that? You, and seconded, Councillor Bennett. Any other concerns, questions? I will call the question. All in favor? That against? That passed. Thank you very much. Oh, let's hope that we can get through the next part easily. All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Duong. And we will now look at the quarterly update to strategic priorities chart and infrastructure strategy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report pertains to council's strategic priorities that were established at the outset of this council term, and they have been amended quarterly as initiatives are completed, modified, and some have been removed. It's kind of a living document guiding our work plan. And this is the first report of 2026. To update it, the departmental directors have amended timelines to adjust for competing operational priorities, and those changes have been presented to council today for comment, amendment, and approval.
Okay, so first of all, we're looking at the strategic priorities chart, and chart number 1, so we have it there, attachment 1, and we have an attachment 1 draft. So council, anybody have any concerns about this or any comments? We see on the draft, the amendment draft, that that we now are down to only 3 priorities, council priorities, because the fence at the splash park has been completed, and we have removed the council resolution on alcohol consumption in the parks. So we're down to 3 now. Some of the other items that we notice are policies and agreements that are very close to being done. There was about 6 of them that are going to happen this year. We hope. We know that there's always possibilities of changes, but it looks like many of them are slated to be handled. The airport agreement, the management agreement, parks master plan, childcare needs assessment, RMI projects, if outdoor fitness equipment, hooray. And so several of them are slated to be to continue. The one thing that I looked at the top was the fact that we normally have 5 council priorities, and with the strategic plan, there's just 3 now. Anybody have any suggestions?
Got a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Isn't the airport management plan? I thought we had an agreement.
Yes, we do have an agreement. There's just one clause we're working on completing.
Oh, one. Oh, and the other question is, I thought we were going to put that new washroom at Pioneer Walkway this year, not next year. It says 27 on here.
That was Councillor, or I should say Director Davis's recommendation. I believe it's being started right now. The design is being done, but I think it's going to take that
But it won't
long
be
to
open
complete.
until 27.
Anybody else have anything? Go ahead.
I would like to see the advocacy and partnership with Chamber of Commerce kind of move up a bit higher. After the most recent AGM, the South Okanagan Chamber of Commerce AGM, I've met with the new ED, and they're working on what we proposed recently, where we can potentially contract out some economic retention and enhancement initiatives through Chamber of Commerce. And there's some really, anyways, I think it would be a quick win, and something that we can start seeing some results fairly, fairly quickly if we move that priority up a bit.
So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Is
Advocacy
the advocacy one. Okay.
at the bottom right now.
Chamber of Commerce. Okay. I could certainly support that too. Yeah. I think the Chamber of Commerce has a very good group of people that are working together, and working together with Oliver Asuyas and OK Falls in some of the events and some of the ideas, I think is a positive thing. I think we need to look at ways we can do that more.
Just to clarify, last we talked, I would like to see like a presentation with different tiers in terms of what the budget would look like from like low to high, and what initiatives and services the Chamber of Commerce can provide locally just to support Asuyas businesses. I think it hits five birds with one stone, right? They can provide the staffing power for active, which we don't have that economy of scale, because I mean, we're not going to hire like a 0.2 or 0.1 FTE for someone like that. And this way, it also helps to bolster and use their pre-existing infrastructure and resources more efficiently.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it'd be prudent if the Chamber of Commerce made a presentation to us to see where they're focusing going, and that would help us set a budget.
I have the skeleton of it in an email here. So this is basically the impetus to get that presentation here so that we can decide.
Could I also suggest, as I'm a director on ETSI-BC, which is the Economic Trust of the Southern Interior, right now there is $1 million in grants available for the next month. I think it started on April the 9th and it goes for a month. And I think that if there's, I mean, I know it takes a little bit of time to get that done, but it might be a good idea for the Chamber of Commerce to have a look at that, even getting a grant to start. There is a form that needs to be filled out easily, but there are counselors that help, and I would recommend that. Certainly ETSI-BC is doing a great job of supporting this. It's done in the Thompson Okanagan and the Columbia Kootenai. So it's $1 million right now, and there's usually about 25 different grants that go out with that money. There's also another $1 million available in the fall of this year. So if it's not done right now, it would be a good way to get something done with the chamber. And I'm pretty sure that the new chamber executive director would be able to follow up on this and find out. Yeah.
Etsy does a great job with grant funding. The problem is it's not guaranteed, so we don't know. And B, if the chamber does receive grant funding, then those initiatives aren't specific to Asuyas. They would have to use those grant funding dollars for the whole South Okanagan. So what I'm proposing to be moved up to a council priority is a direct partnership where we contract out their services for Asuyas specific enhancement.
It always, anything with OBWB and ETSI-BC, if you are working in partnership, that has added points. I just want to point that out. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I totally agree. I think the chamber, there's some good things there. But what I like to do, agree with Councillor King, is have your new EO come in and say, here's where I want to go. Here's a new direction I want to go. Here's what I'd like to see, so that the council can see where, with a new direction that she's trying to bring it, to get a better understanding. And I think at that time, come in and show where there's some of the funding that you guys are talking about that might be available. I have no problem moving this up the chart because if it's helping us, that's good. And, but I think it'd be nice to hear her direction. Thank you.
We have had the chamber come to council meetings before, and especially with a new board and a new executive director, I think that might be a good idea. Could Councillor Chong, could you suggest that to them, that they phone the town and see if they could arrange a time to come and present?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, as long as it is a priority of council for them to come in.
It's always a priority to have groups come in and give us updates on things for sure. So what we're looking at is the suggestion to move this particular issue up onto the council priorities as number 4. Have you already got that down?
What I've captured is to move the advocacy of the Chamber of Commerce up into the council priorities for a direct partnership specific to Osoyoos.
Yep.
Yes.
Do you need a motion for that? Yeah. So Councillor Chong, you're making that motion?
Unless there's any other priorities, because the motion, I think we would loop all the changes to the strategic priorities chart into one motion. So
Okay. Is
That-
there another one then, a number 5 for the list? Because
that
we
I-
do have an option to have 5
Yeah.
up there. That's what we've usually had.
Yeah.
But we could do this one first and then carry on.
I'll make
So,
that motion.
okay, Councillor King, you're seconding that? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. That's good. So that's the 4th one up there. Is there anything else that needs to be moved up to the priorities? The positive thing is that we've got several things on the list below that are being handled right now, and I feel comfortable with that too. We don't have to. We can look at strategic priorities again. We could bring it back and we could add it on at some time in the future if we got something else. Okay? Okay. All right. So, do we have anything else? The infrastructure strategy on attachment 2 seems to be, I wondered if there were any changes needed to that. I didn't see any myself, but I was not sure whether anybody else had pointed some out. They're sort of overviews of things that we want to do. So, well, if we don't have any more, then let's leave that. And so I believe we've covered that one, and is there anything else, Mrs.
We
Hill?
just need a resolution to say that council's accepting the infrastructure strategy without changes.
Okay. Good. Yes.
Once the water come into effect, water and days?
Oh, that's coming up this afternoon and we're targeting May 1st.
So what we need is, please, that Committee of the Whole recommend the council approve the infrastructure strategy as shown in attachment 2. Somebody who'd like to move that? Thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Chong, all in favor. Thank you. Did you have something else? Hang on. Hang on. Are we done? Okay. We've already had it terminated. Councillor Poderica, Councillor Chong, or Councillor King, sorry. All in favor.